GLP-1s, everyone is talking about them. They're being sold as a miracle injection for weight loss. But here's the truth. My own mother nearly died from using one. That's why I want to unpack this. The risks, the hype, the safer, smarter options that people should know about. Joining me is Dr. Alistair McAlpine, Chief Medical Officer for AndroLab and FenLab, where he helps men and women optimize their hormones to the best of their ability. Dr. Alistair, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
I love this. I'm so excited about this chat, I must be honest.
Same here. Love this.
We were briefly talking about it just before we started the show, and I was unpacking my history, my mom's history. So I'm really looking forward to learning quite a bit myself.
Fantastic. Love that.
Let's get straight to it.
Cool.
We're talking GLP-1s now. No name drops.
Fortunately, we can't.
No, we cannot, although I'd love to, but we're going to skip that. Are GLP-1s a true breakthrough, or is this just an appetite suppressant that's got brilliant marketing?
Great question. So GLP-1s have actually been around for almost 15 years and obviously gained a lot of traction and a lot of interest when a lot of celebrities have started using it, obviously for weight loss. However, GLP-1s were always originally developed for patients with metabolic issues, so namely insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, going into type 1 diabetes. And obviously what a lot of patients were seeing when they're using these medications were weight loss. Who doesn't want to lose weight? Seemed a lot easier because it's an injection once a week, and fantastic, and the weight just falls off because it's basically suppressing your appetite. So fast forwarding to now, obviously we know these medications have picked up a lot of popularity. And what's happening now is, unfortunately, is that every second person wants to be in a GLP-1. It's always important that a patient that wants to get onto GLP-1 is a candidate for a GLP-1. So namely the two medications that are available now, semaglutide or semaglutide if you're in the United States, and then tirzepatide is the other one that's available now in South Africa. And obviously what these are going to do now is control basically the hunger and the appetite center of the brain. So the best way that patients describe this is that it basically takes the noise away from food. It takes the cravings away. But the mistake that people make is they sort of basket everything together, where whether they've received a GLP-1 on the black market or they've been to a doctor who might not have been educated correctly, and so it's a bad medication. It's shocking. As you discussed earlier, your mom had a really, really severe side effect. But from what I could gather, she probably wasn't managed correctly. No. So the whole thing is obviously to make sure that when you are deciding to go on this journey, are you firstly a candidate, yes or no? Has the necessary investigations been done as well? Has everything been correctly explained to you? And the best way to go about these meds, if you are a candidate and you're going to go down this path, is low and slow. That's the motto I like to use. So low, the lowest dose possible, and you build it up very slowly with time. If you do too much too quickly, that's when patients land up with severe side effects. Some patients, even the low doses, can't tolerate the medication, then so be it, right? But 95% of patients, if you start that low and slow approach, build them up slowly with time, the weight loss is not going to happen within 2-3 months. The weight loss is going to happen sometimes over 60 weeks, 70 weeks, right? But that's something that's more sustainable, because that's what it's about, sustainability, not a quick fix.
But tell me, does that then have an impact on your overall digestive system?
So they talk about gastroparesis, basically. Yeah. That's the one sort
or
of
gastritis.
Gastritis, pancreatitis, increased gallstones, all those things. There was a very interesting study that was done by one of the big pharmaceutical companies that distributes these medications, where they looked at a cohort of patients that were on GLP-1s and a cohort of patients who weren't on GLP-1s. And what they found was that the side effect profile of both cohorts was exactly the same, in terms of a patient that's not on a GLP-1 can still later on in life get pancreatitis, gallstones, all those complications, all those issues. And then obviously the patients in GLP-1s, it was pretty much the same. So once again, it's about, if a patient lands up with the potential side effect, you've got to be able to recognize it early, manage it early. But where I've seen patients that have had issues, they've been to wherever buying stuff. I've heard horror stories of people buying black market stuff from beauticians and wherever online. I've seen people advertise these things on social media, like on stories on the Instagram. you need to make sure you're going to the correct people that know what they are doing. And I say that's where the low and slow principle comes in. And that's where a lot of the times you don't have these issues.
Sure. I guess then it's about making sure that you do certain tests before, surely.
100%. And it's making sure that the follow-up is there as well and the support is there as well. So it's not just, here's your medication, off you go, that there's a support structure in place. So it's not just about the medication as well. It's diet as well. It's exercise as well. It's about changing lifestyle factors as well in combination with. You can't just expect the GLP-1 to fix everything. If you don't fix your diet, you don't stop moving your body, you don't do all the other necessary things, guess what's going to happen? You're not going to get the maximum benefit.
I think the biggest concern I have is from my own experience, what happened with my mom. So for the listeners out there, she had an awful experience. She was starting to go through menopause, and my mom she's hot. I've got a hot mother. Okay. I'm just going to say she has an absolutely stunning body. She's a Pilates instructor. She works so hard on herself all the time, and she's always trying to encourage others. And there might've been one or two people who were like, oh, I see you putting on a little bit of weight. And she was like, shock horror.
Yeah.
Oh, and then a friend goes, don't worry. I got you, girl. We can go to this doctor. She'll do the injections for you. She's got it all under control. So my mom toodles off. And now you automatically assume, because it's a doctor, that they know what they're doing, right?
100%.
So she went to this doctor. The doctor said, what are you here for? My mom said she would like to lose some weight. She's struggling a bit with weight around her stomach. Now, if you meet my mother, you'll go, where? You know, it's a lot of a psychological
100%.
element in it as well. And I would assume that medical practitioners are also obligated to take that into consideration before doing any kind of practice.
100%.
So that was not really considered. It was more like, what do you want? Oh, you would like GLP-1s. Sure, no problem. I got you. And this woman administered the injections for her every week. And my mom was like, listen, I'm not feeling well. I'm throwing up a lot. I'm feeling super nauseous. No, don't stress. It's all good. Just continue. The woman had double dosed her. And my mom ended up in hospital. She went for gastroscopes, she went for CT scan, she went for MRI scan, she did you name it to see what was going on, because they couldn't actually figure out what was going on and how to stop it. Eventually, they just said to her, well, at the time she was diagnosed with gastroparesis, which is very severe. I then took her to another gastroenterologist specialist and ran more tests, did a specific gastroparesis test. She ended up diagnosing her with gastritis. Now, it can be a side effect of GLP-1s. Looking at research, my own research and analysis, I can see that this is something people do record as a problem. And she can live with this for up to a year. She's still on a very strict diet, and this took place in April. She couldn't work for 6 weeks. Only now she's starting to eat normally. I mean, it was boiled chicken. And
so getting back to your mom's case, in terms of like a bit of a red flag. Why is the doctor administering the injection and not your mom at home?
You see, she didn't even know that was a thing.
Was she even getting what she said she was getting? Because unfortunately, what's happening now is within the GLP-1 space, the sort of gray market compounded GLP-1s, which are technically illegal with SAPRA, are still there. And there's no really control about what the dosage, how much is in there. They'll say it's X amount of milligrams, but are you actually getting what you're saying? Because it's not the original. Everyone's sort of looking for the cheaper option, but sometimes the cheaper option is not the best option.
And it was cheaper because she was only paying 1,000 Rand per jab.
Well,
I mean, if you, after finding out.
But you see, that's actually quite expensive because you look at the cost of a pen, roughly, right?
Okay.
The cost of a pen, if you have to break it down to sort of what it's going to cost you per injection for over like per week, basically, should come to about 500, 600 Rand per injection.
Okay.
So
she got ripped off.
It's a bit of a red flag. But this is unfortunately, once again, the issues that we're seeing is that patient education is vitally important. So patients need to be educated in terms of, okay, I'm interested in a GLP-1. am I candidate for it? Am I going to a doctor that knows what they're doing, educated in the correct management, and how they're going to monitor me as well?
Yeah.
That's very, very important.
So let's talk a bit about that. In my mom's case, she didn't even have a consultation form or consent form. There was no blood test. Now, I understand, as you said, that a person could have a reaction to anything, and it's not necessarily directly linked to the medication. But I think the risks need to be discussed ahead of
100%.
time. So what happens to a medical practitioner or I think there'll be different answers to that, but let's rather say, how does a patient detect whether they're getting the correct feedback in a consultation?
At the end of the day, you've got to make sure that you've filled out a medical questionnaire, all right? That you've got obviously the option to do a consultation as well, which has got to be there, and you are provided with all the information. So on both the online platforms that I'm the chief medical officer for, patients, in order to receive these medications, they fill out a medical questionnaire, there's a consultation, and there's an entire information pack that they're provided with that covers absolutely everything from what the medication is, how it works, potential side effects, absolutely everything. So they're well informed. So sort of red flags once again is, have I filled out a medical questionnaire? Have I had a consultation? Because from the consultation process, you can also decide maybe this patient actually needs some blood work. So in your mom's case, she should have probably actually started potentially with hormone optimization therapy prior to even exploring a GLP-1.
Absolutely.
So that's where that process is important, and patient education is vitally important. That's what I'm quite passionate about, is trying to teach patients about all these things and what's out there and what to look for. So if you are educated and you're empowered, guess what's going to happen? You can make the right decision.
So let's break it down as simple as possible. If a patient is looking to go the GLP-1 route, what are red flags, and what would be just some red flags, and what would be considered a suited candidate for a GLP-1?
So currently, if you're looking at a GLP-1 for weight loss, right, there's only, I'm not allowed to mention the brand name, there's only one registered semaglutide now. It's just been registered in South Africa that's actually registered for weight loss. In terms of what you're going to look out for. So have you filled out a medical questionnaire or not? All right. That's the first thing. In order to be a candidate, ideally you should have a BMI of over 30 or a BMI of over 27 with comorbid diseases. They're also talking about sort of adolescence now as well, but that's becoming in the future to South Africa. But those are actually the two main criteria that actually make you a candidate for the use of a GLP-1.
Okay.
A lot of the times what patients forget is...
What is a comorbid disease?
So comorbidities would be things like hypertension, diabetes, all those type of things. So comorbid diseases, basically.
Okay.
So that's the set criteria for a patient to get a GLP-1. It's also then important, though, if a patient's considering now, so I'll use your mom as an example again, would she potentially been a good candidate for hormone therapy? So that's where blood testing comes into play. So those are sort of the set criteria. There are people that do off-label use of GLP-1s, especially for like controlling inflammation and all those things. And you do get patients sort of like in a perimenopausal state, and once again, using mom as an example, she's probably hit that time in life. Guess what happens in perimenopause? Estrogen goes down, testosterone goes down. You're going to start gaining a little bit of weight because your basal metabolic rate is not functioning the way it used to. So you're still doing everything exactly the same diet, same exercise, same everything, but all of a sudden you pick up a little bit of weight. Why? Hormones are pretty out of balance as well. So there's some really cool evidence that's coming out now in the States of sort of like a microdosing protocol of GLP-1s with the correct hormone optimization, which works really, really well. But currently, the set criteria is BMI greater than 30 or BMI greater than 27 with comorbid diseases.
So you're the Chief Medical Officer of FemLab.
Yes.
Tell me a bit about FemLab and what do you do there?
So taking a sort of a step back, we actually originally started just after COVID with a site called AndroLab. AndroLab was designed basically for men's hormonal health. We saw a need for guys not wanting to come into a doctor's office, also accessibility as well, scared to talk about issues like erectile dysfunction, all that. It was much easier to do it online, and obviously ease of service because it literally arrives at their doorstep on a monthly basis. That grew quite significantly in popularity, and then we discovered that a lot of our patients are saying, well, my partner now, so my wife, fiance, girlfriend, also needs something. And that's when, it was about 2 years ago, we started FemLab. So FemLab basically hormone optimization and longevity. That's what we are after.
And what's your process? So if I wanted to come and visit you, what do I do?
So everything's done online. So you go into the website, register on the website. You can express what you're interested in there. So various things, basically, such as like hormonal health or use of GLP-1s that we sell through the website as well, often to our patients through the website. You've got to fill out a medical questionnaire, right?
Okay.
Once you've done the medical questionnaire, we then basically determine from the medical questionnaire, are you a candidate, yes or no, right? We've got various systems in place there. What happens then is you actually get sent a blood form directly. You then go and do the bloods. So it's done properly, so you can actually see where your levels are. Once you've done the bloods.
What blood tests do you do
So
in general?
we keep it very simple for now. So basically, complete hormone profile. So estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, thyroid hormone, and we check hemoglobin as well. We try and keep it simpler for costing reasons for patients. If a lot of patients struggle a little bit to do like an entire panel of bloods. However, saying that then if patients want to do a bit of a deeper dive, we then sort of give them a blood form that is a bit more comprehensive. So then we start looking at cholesterol, insulin, all those things, full iron profile, vitamin D levels, the
cortisol?
whole thing. Cortisol as well. But the problem with cortisol is cortisol varies throughout the day. And actually, there's this whole sort of concept about cortisol's bad, right? You actually need cortisol, right? What happens first thing in the morning is you get your cortisol spike, right? And that cortisol then starts to slowly decrease during the day. That's what helps you to basically wind down later on in the evening and go to sleep. So the problem with cortisol is that it can vary so much through the day. And at the time they're doing the blood draw, boom, that's the level that you're getting.
So would it not be lower in the morning because if you have a high stressful work environment, it would spike?
So you see that in a healthy individual, ideally, it should be high in the morning, decreases during the day. And you'll see various ways to sort of like spike your cortisol is like cold water immersion, exercising, even caffeine, all those type of things to get that spike. And then you'll be set up for the rest of the day. Light exposure first thing in the morning as well, very, very important.
So you want a spike. Sorry to interrupt. You want a spike in cortisol.
You want a spike. It's important. You want your body, your physiology needs that spike. And there's this perception that cortisol is bad. Cortisol is not bad. If you don't have cortisol, you've got a big problem. Your body can't deal with stress then. You actually do need it. But say cortisol blood tests, that don't give us too much information actually.
Because it varies throughout the day.
Varies so much.
So you've got other hormones that you focus on.
Other hormones that we focus on. I know everyone's hell-bent on cortisol, but it actually doesn't make much of a difference.
That's very interesting.
So I know that's probably going to irritate some people when I say that, but that's the truth.
Well, they can send their messages.
Exactly. Send me a DM.
In the comments and we will back it up.
So basically, we testing the entire hormonal profile. And then once you get those blood results, what happens then is we then give you feedback. All done through the platform. So basically, I analyze the results and say, okay, great. This is where you are. This is where I think your levels are low or suboptimal. This is what I advise we do going forward. Patients then can book a virtual consult or they get an information pack or they can actually just send me an email. So what we've done now is something called a retrospective consultation. So what we've seen is patients don't have time. They sometimes don't have time to go to doctor's office or even sit on a Zoom meeting for half an hour.
Yeah.
So a lot of the time stuff, because the information pack is extremely comprehensive, via email, basically, and then can sign up for the treatments.
Throw it through OpenAI. Give me a summary. No, I'm joking.
But that's what people do, unfortunately. So I obviously sit with every single blood from every single blood result from every single patient, analyze it properly, look at their medical history, go through what their symptoms are and say, okay, this is what I feel is going to work. The one downside of hormone therapy, and this is what people don't understand, is it's not a one-size-fits-all approach, and it's never going to be 100% correct the first time round. Okay. So what we then do is we then monitor patients. And this is important. Monitoring is so important. So patients give us feedback. They're feeling amazing. All the symptoms are resolved. Fantastic. Patients say, I've had, say, 60%, 70% of my symptoms are resolved. I've still had these things. Great. Let's redo some blood tests. We redo the blood test and it gives me an idea of how your physiology is responding. Great. I can then adjust your therapy. So the way we do this is with a bioidentical hormone cream that you apply once a day. And what's beautiful about this is it's customized specifically for the patient.
Oh, I'm excited about that. I love hearing that.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. It's not just here's a prescription, there's a tablet, and off you go. It's done specifically for you. So I can change the concentration by 0.1% if I want to. So it's highly, highly tailored specifically for the patient. And what's nice about the bioidenticals is decreases the side effect profile as well. So it's probably jumping to another point.
No, go for it.
I'm sure you've seen there was always this big thing about hormone replacement therapy causes cancer in women and breast cancer and all these things now.
It's a big thing, yeah.
So currently now, the FDA has actually just removed the black box warning a couple of weeks ago, basically from HRT to show that it's actually the complete opposite to that. If you look at the incidence, especially of breast cancer, it's such a small incidence. It's like 0.001%, right? That the benefits from the therapy in terms of maintenance of bone health, cognitive function, muscle, all of that completely supersedes that. Obviously, you've got a patient who's had a history of breast cancer. You've got to be very, very careful. But the beauty about the creams is I can leave estrogen out of the equation and I can give the patient, say, testosterone. And testosterone in female patients, vitally important. Probably the most important hormone in a female patient is actually testosterone.
I have heard that. It actually prevents premenopause 100%, as well.
But in terms of maintenance of muscle mass, energy levels, bone health, the list goes on and on and on. And if I had to, in a young, healthy female patient such as yourself, extract the volume of estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone out your system and put them into bottles, the testosterone, the volume would be higher than the rest of your hormones.
That's brilliant.
So that's where we can customize it as well. And that's what I like about the process that we use, because it's patient-centered. It's not just there's a script and off you go.
And how is it absorbed? Do you have carriers?
So it's got carriers within the cream.
Okay.
And we say in the upper inside of the upper arm, because the tissue is quite thin there, gets absorbed directly into the system, works beautifully.
And no skin irritations from it? No
skin irritation whatsoever.
And is your process the same for Andrea Labs?
So for the men, slightly different. So the men, in terms of the process, is the same in terms of medical questionnaire, consultation if they want, the information pack. But the men, we then use either have the option of an injectable testosterone or a cream as well. Some men are scared to inject themselves.
I'm sure most.
Well, you'll be surprised, right? Out of our patient base, I'd only say about 5% are actually on the cream, 95% are actually on the injectable.
And what's the impact on efficacy between the two?
So some patients, the problem with the cream is some patients either respond really well or they don't respond at all.
Okay.
So once again, in the follow-ups, if I see in a patient's blood results that they're not getting the result they should be with the cream, I'll say to them, listen, you're one of those patients, you're just not responding to the cream nicely. Let's switch you over to the injectable.
And how long would it take to be able to get to that conclusion?
Oh, within 2 months, 6 weeks, sometimes even, you can see what the levels are.
While we're on the topic of hormones, let's chat more about that and male hormones, because I feel that men are neglected.
Men are.
All the men are like, yes, preach it.
Men are. Most
men
certainly.
are neglected. Everything is about women and women's menopause and perimenopause, but men go through changes too.
100%.
And because it's not so widely spoken about, it's almost hush-hush, and men don't want to talk about it because they feel that they're embarrassed and it's not 100%. So common. And then you have an incredible man with great intellect and a beautiful personality starting to change, and it's impacting his confidence, and he doesn't even know where to turn.
100%.
But something as simple as going to Andrea Labs and doing your assessment and making minor changes to your hormones could have a huge impact.
100%.
So let's talk a little bit about that. What is your take on that? Is there a certain age that men should be considering doing these tests?
So where you've got to look at it is the symptoms of, and I use the term suboptimal or low testosterone. So big symptoms for men is things like lack of sleep, loss of muscle mass, decreased libido, erectile dysfunction, lack of motivation, anxiety, depression. They just don't feel like the alpha males. You say they lose that confidence, right? Things are changing. They just don't feel right is the best way to describe it. So as soon as you get those type of symptoms, that's when you should already start investigating, okay, could it be my testosterone? Simple as just the blood test. And the blood test will tell you immediately, you're either suboptimal or low, or you're within normal range. So if you're in the normal range, what else could potentially be an issue? Is it genuine sort of psychological issue, PTSD, whatever it may be. So that's where the blood testing is very important. But to put into context, I'm seeing patients as young as like early 30s, even late 20s, with testosterone levels of 80-year-old men.
Wow.
And it's quite scary to see. It's actually almost becoming like, I always term it like the second pandemic, basically, because there are more and more and more men that don't know what to do. So I always say the easiest way is just get a test. It's one blood test. It doesn't cost a huge amount of money. And you'll know exactly, okay, that's where I am. And then you can educate yourself more about, am I a candidate or not? And unfortunately, what happens is that we see this quite often, is that I get patients that have been to other practitioners and they've done their testosterone levels and they've got all the symptoms and they've seen, okay, well, you're within normal range, right? So you're fine, okay? And the biomarker that you look at there is something called free testosterone, right? So free testosterone basically is the testosterone that's available in your system that can actually do something, because you get something called the total testosterone and then free testosterone. So total testosterone is the entire amount of testosterone in your system, but then you get something called sex hormone binding globulin. And what sex hormone binding globulin does is it binds to testosterone. If a hormone is bound, it can't do anything. It basically becomes useless. So what the lab then does is calculate the free testosterone. So that's what we can determine myself as the doctor. I can say, okay, great. That's your true testosterone level. It's a very broad reference range though. So depending which lab you go to, ranges anywhere from about 180 picomoles per liter up to 739 picomoles per liter. So you might have, say, a 40-year-old patient who's now sitting with a free testosterone of, say, 260. Okay. So the doctor will look at it and go, you're within normal range, so it can't be your testosterone. What a lot of my colleagues don't understand, or what a lot of people aren't aware of, that reference range, when they originally developed that reference range, they used a cohort of male patients aged 18 up to the age of 80 to get to that.
That's so broad.
There's a big difference between an 18-year-old and an 80-year-old. Okay?
Absolutely.
So,
it's not
and
going to
that's
be
why you
that
got those
accurate.
suboptimal levels. So the aim of what we're trying to do is we use something called a microdosing principle, where basically I'm trying to get those patients up towards that physiological high value, up towards like that 650, 700 mark. Because if I get you there, you've now got the benefits of an optimized testosterone, but we're respecting your body's physiology. I'm not trying to turn you into a bodybuilder, because unfortunately, injectable testosterones get this very bad reputation because everybody immediately thinks steroid abuse, right? That's not the aim of the therapy. I want to get you to that physiological high value. So when you're there, you now get the benefits, but respecting your physiology. So guess what happens? You don't get side effects. So when it talks about gynecomastia and aggression and skin issues and all of that, because we're keeping you within the physiological realm, but towards the high end, you don't get that.
And how long would you need to be on that therapy? Because if your hormones are naturally down.
The downside is once the damage has been done, it's been done. So if your body's not going to miraculously overnight just start producing testosterone.
So do you go on like a microdose indefinitely?
You can use it indefinitely.
Okay. And you don't like do it for bursts of 3 months and take a break or anything like that?
I've got some patients that do that, but I mean, I say I practice what I preach. I've been doing this now for over 9 years for myself, all right? And we've got patients on our platform that have been doing it now since day dot, so when we started, for 5 years now. I intend on doing it for the next 30 years if they can. It's one of these things where, once again, because we are playing within your normal physiology, we're monitoring you continuously, it's safe. But you obviously, once again, need to be a candidate, and that's where the blood results are good. So I'll get patients that will do the bloods, but their levels are high. They're within the high range. So I'm like, sorry, can't do anything for you.
Then what do you do at that point?
So that's where you've got to start, unpacking a little bit and saying, is there anything else? Okay, so energy levels. Okay, so energy levels are low. So now you can look at things like NAD, right? NAD helps massively as well. Are you taking enough vitamin D, for instance? Are you eating correctly? There's all these other things that you can do if you see a patient's got normal bloods.
So, and what about DHEA? Can you explain a bit about what that is? And
so DHEA basically like precursor in the adrenals to a lot of sort of the sex hormones, so particularly testosterone. In my opinion, DHEA doesn't make a huge difference. The only place that I do really think DHEA works is actually in female patients for vaginal health.
Okay.
So DHEA pessaries, locally acting, fair enough, in those patients that had, say, a history of breast cancer, or have got normal estrogen levels, but they're containing things like low libido, vaginal dryness, all those things, locally acting DHEA, amazing, but systemically not a fan. Doesn't make a big difference.
And in terms of women's hormones, so we've spoken now about men's hormones and how they can test and how testosterone implicates. What about women's hormones? Do you run the same type of testing to be able to identify?
Yeah, so you said, so we're going to check estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. So slightly different to what the men are doing, all right? And then once again, we check and make sure with the cream, great, this is what you're going to do, and then we follow up.
And how would a woman be able to identify whether the changes she's going through is lifestyle or hormone related? What are the typical symptoms? You express that of men, but what are the typical symptoms women can identify?
In women, the list is actually far longer. So it's about a list of it's about 20 things, and I can't remember all 20 off the top of my head.
That's okay.
But big things is once again, so lack of energy, poor sleep, increased skin laxity is a big complaint. Low libido, vaginal dryness is another thing, loss of muscle mass, hair thinning, irritable, anxious, depression, lack of motivation as well. Just once again, not feeling right. Weight gain is another thing as well. All of a sudden, they start a bit of weight in the abdominal area, and they're doing everything exactly the way they used to do. So same exercise regime, same diet. All of a sudden, weight's there now. Or they're seeing, geez, I'm becoming a bit softer. I'm losing muscle mass. So those are sort of all the signs pointing towards something's happening. What's important then, though, is to try and be very proactive and not wait until it's too late.
Okay.
The big mistake a lot of female patients is they wait too long to do something. If you catch sort of that perimenopausal state early, you can negate a lot of the long-term effects that come from basically a menopausal/postmenopausal sort of picture that you would see in a female patient.
And would you say that, like you expressed for me, I know I'm doing a comparison between the two, but men, testosterone is a huge implication. Women, would you say it's estrogen or also testosterone?
So once again, no offense, ladies are always a bit more
We're
complex.
so complicated.
It's a combination estrogen and testosterone, even progesterone as well. Makes a big impact in female patients as well. That's where you've got to find that balance between all sort of three hormones. And obviously, once again, based on medical history, all those things. Some patients, we wouldn't use progesterone, for instance. And I say some patients say history of breast cancer, especially like an estrogen positive breast cancer or estrogen receptor positive breast cancer, you wouldn't use estrogen. And that's where you've got to play around a little bit until you sort of find that sweet spot, so to say, patient feels great and therapy works.
So let's take men and women. Okay. If you are experiencing these changes in your body, you gaining weight, you are going through hormonal changes, while they are on this hormone therapy, or if they want to start being proactive and do something at home, is there a simple stack that a female, I know you're going to laugh because you're going to be like, yeah, right. But is there a simple starter stack that a woman could take and men could take?
So if you're not wanting to sort of explore the hormonal sort of
direction,
avenue for whatever reason, right? What is going to give you the best insurance for later on in life? So what has been shown in both male and female patients, basically, if you're saving for retirement, you're putting money away for in your retirement annuity or whatever, provident fund or whatever one day that you can draw on that money, right? Yes. What is going to be the best thing that when you hit your golden years, so your 60s, 70s, 80s, that is going to give you functional life, not depending, 100% not depending on other people, right? Yes. Muscle, right? Okay. Boils down to muscle. The studies have shown patients with something called sarcopenia. So sarcopenia is the fancy clinical term we use for loss of muscle. Patients that have sarcopenia later on in life, cognitive issues, cardiovascular disease, metabolic disease, increased risk of cancer, increased risk of fractures, all these things, the list goes on and on and on and on and on. So what can you do now that's simple and cheap and effective? So number one supplement, creatine monohydrate. All day, every day. Right. Okay. It's going to help with muscle mass, but also what it's shown now, creatine helps massively with cognitive function as well. Huge, huge benefits from a cognitive point of view. So
Creatine's been a huge buzzword at the moment, but literally only now in the biohacking space am I noticing it more and more.
Yeah. And
everyone's saying creatine
what's nice
is your go-to.
It's cost effective. You can buy like a month's supply for 300 Rand and it'll last you for ages, basically. So creatine's a good thing. Then what else can you do in terms of, you can look at vitamin supplementation, but once again, if you're on a budget, simple things. So vitamin D, where else can you get vitamin D from? The sun.
Yeah.
All right. Everyone stays indoors. They're too scared to go into the sun. You don't need to sit and bake in the sun for 3 hours a day.
You don't need to be blood red. Everyone, you know my take on SPF, please.
Yes, exactly. So just even half an hour outside, right? It's going to help with your vitamin D. That's immediately.
I believe vitamin D is absorbed through your scalp as well.
100%.
So, if you don't feel like putting sunscreen on your scalp, you don't really need to with your long hair.
100%.
Just go into the sun for a few
That's another
minutes.
thing. Then diet. All right. So
I hate this part.
I know everyone hates this part. Unfortunately, we live in a world where processed and ultra-processed food is a reality. So I've got a very, very simple way to tell patients how to eat. If it comes in a packet, a box, or a bottle, and you can't physically see what you're eating, don't eat it. All right? Invariably, it's been ultra-processed. Okay. So good, wholesome food, 5 colors on your plate, all right? That's going to help as well. And the next thing is lifting weights, all right? Obviously, a bit of cardiovascular exercise is important, but I would actually always tell patients to prioritize resistance training. You don't even need to have a gym membership. You can do body weight exercises, push-ups,
Use your baby at home.
100%. You can use a suitcase full of things, whatever, squats, air squats, it doesn't matter, body weight stuff even, but there needs to be some form of resistance training. That's sort of the simplest way to do it. Then obviously, as you go on, you can then, based on budget and all that, you can then start really looking at, you look at the completely opposite end of the scale, hormone therapy, NAD, semaglutide, all the vitamin supplementation, all those things. Peptides are becoming a big thing now as well. There's a lot that you can do. So I think a lot of people are reluctant to even explore getting into sort of the longevity space because they're worried it's going to be expensive. You don't need to start with expensive stuff. So just the basics are creatine, exercise, good diet, a little bit of sun exposure every day. You're
resistance training.
100%.
So that is your quick fix for men and women who
100%.
want to look at a better future.
100%. 100%.
Okay, you spoke a bit about NAD and peptides.
Yes.
Let's dive into that because the biohacking space is so diverse and so fascinating at the moment. I must say, personally, I love how much access we have to technology now, and biohacking fascinates me completely. I have a cold plunge at home.
Okay.
Love it.
All right.
I know. I want to hear what you think about cold plunging.
Not like what I have to say.
Maybe not. But let's get into a little bit about NAD and peptides. Tell me your take on it.
Okay. So
let's explain what it is first.
Let's start with NAD.
Yes.
So NAD, this is a mouthful. Nicotinamide.
Do you want a sip of water first?
Nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide is what NAD stands for. So the long and short of it, basically, it's a coenzyme, but it's a coenzyme that particularly targets mitochondrial health.
Okay.
So the mitochondria are basically the engine, so to say, that runs the cell, controls cellular function. So as we get older, right, our mitochondria don't function as well as they did, say, 20 years ago, all right? So it's the same as if you've got an old car, the engine doesn't work as well as it did 20 years ago. So what's nice about NAD being this coenzyme is that it basically restores mitochondrial health. So if you restore mitochondrial health, cellular function works better. So cells can then get rid of byproducts easier. It's going to work better. End result is improved metabolic health, improved cardiovascular health, improved cognitive function. Even notice things like your skin gets better, your hair gets better, everything.
And from
It's
what
great.
age?
So this is where, once again, it's this big debate of when you start. I wouldn't start too early, but if you're starting to notice, I'm feeling tired, you can see you're starting to age a little bit, skin's not as radiant as it used to be, because I always said the skin's a great sort of indicator of what's going on internally. That's when you can potentially look at starting it. But with NAD, unfortunately, it's a minefield out there right now because every second place you look at now is selling NAD.
Yes.
In IV format, injectable format, oral format. So there's all these different formats. And a lot of people don't even know where to start. And also, are you getting legitimate product as well? That's another big concern because unfortunately, there's a lot of people there out just to make a quick buck off the public. How do you know you're actually getting NAD? That's a problem. So I'm a big fan when we do it through our platforms. We've got a subcutaneous NAD that you inject twice a week. And a lot of patients say to me, I can't have the oral format. The oral format doesn't work. And the reason why it doesn't work is
the end.
And the evidence shows it gets broken down in your gastrointestinal tract. That's it, right. Then you get the NAD IVs. So it's quite interesting because every second street corner now, there's an IV bar. All right. And once again, obviously, everyone's trying to make money. I understand that. But the cotton, okay, NAD, great. Let's do NAD IVs. The problem with NAD IV is a legitimate NAD IV can take anywhere from 4 to 6 hours to run in.
Wow. Okay. No one's got that time.
And there's a reason for that because of the flushing effect that you get, basically. It can make you violently ill as well. You get this warm flush feeling. You can feel absolutely horrendous on it. But the problem there is you get this massive dose of NAD in your system, and then a few hours later or a day later, it's gone. So that's why, in my opinion, I know some people might not agree with this, but in my opinion, the subcutaneous injection route twice a week is the way to go. Why? Because it's going to maintain a stable plasma level.
Are there any side effects or dangers of it?
So there's new evidence that's coming out now. So a patient that has active oncology disease, so cancer, I would not use it in those patients. Currently, once again, depending where you're buying your NAD from, that's going to determine potential side effects. So good quality products done in a legitimate laboratory. Guess what's going to happen? You're not going to have any issues. Product that's been imported from wherever, not really great, then you might have some issues down the line. So sometimes patients complain of headaches. They just feel flat. So it's got the complete opposite basic effect of what it's supposed to do. I've heard patients talk about skin issues, severe dry mouth, you name it, blurry vision, but those are products that are not legitimate.
Okay. So if you use a legitimate NAD, 100%. You're okay.
100%.
So it goes back to making sure that you're buying the right thing.
100%.
Getting the correct
and sometimes
advice.
Cheaper is not better.
I think in most cases, cheaper is not better, 100%. Especially in the wellness space.
But this is unfortunately where, and I understand consumers and patients are budget conscious, but sometimes you pay for what you get. If it's too good to be true,
then it is.
It probably is.
And tell me, so we didn't confirm yet age. Let's talk about age.
So age, I'd look at from
NAD?
about age sort of 30 onwards, basically. Okay. That'd be a good.
And is there a limit? Like, could my gran of 84 start using
100%.
it? Okay. And what about her using creatine in that? Is it okay?
100%.
Okay.
So very interesting study. I can't remember the name of the study off the top of my head now, where they took a cohort of patients aged 75 and above.
Okay.
And they put one cohort on creatine and another one without creatine. And the improvement in cognitive function in the patients on creatine, remarkable.
That's brilliant. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to be dialing up my GG at the end of this and let her know. And tell me peptides. Let's talk about that.
So peptides,
what are peptides?
So peptides, basically, a peptide is a collection of amino acids, right? So it forms a small protein, basically, which is designed in such a way to activate various things or receptors, basically, within your physiology to elicit an effect from your physiology. All right. So instead of, and I'm going to use growth hormone as an example here. So there was this big thing about growth hormone years ago, right? Patients injecting growth hormone every day, saying it's great, it's wonderful, huge anti-aging effects. It's been shown not to be so great now. But anyway, you can get a peptide now that can actually stimulate your body's own growth hormone production. All right. It's the same with things like there's BPC-157 is quite a popular thing. I'm sure you've heard that being thrown around all over the place. That helps with sort of tissue repair, healing, has an angiogenic effect, so increases blood supply to an area. So basically what it does is that little peptide will elicit the response within your physiology to, okay, we need more blood vessel formation in that site.
And it can't cause blood clotting.
So the downside of peptides is that they're still not approved by FDA. They're still not approved by SAHPRA in South Africa. Any peptide that is used, and patients aren't made aware of this, it's still within an experimental phase. Right? It's
And NAD?
No. NAD completely fine. It's classified technically as a supplement, right? So that's a very, very safe space to play in.
But
so
peptides not so much.
Peptides not so much, but there's a huge market for it. But the problem with peptides, once again, is where your peptide's coming from. So there's been a massive crackdown in the United States now on peptides. They've shut down a whole bunch of peptide clinics in the United States because no one can actually prove, is my product safe or not, because there's peptides and there's peptides. So you got to make sure that any of the other things within the peptides, so talk about ligands basically in the peptides, so contaminants basically, if you're now injecting that every single day, because some peptides get injected every single day, those things accumulate in your system, your body can't get rid of them, and those can cause issues further down the line as well. So peptides are still a bit of a gray area.
We're going to wait on that.
We are actually, with the platform now, I'm actually currently in the process of finding a legitimate supplier. I think I have actually found a legitimate supplier. But once again, going through all the rigorous testing, the process to make sure that anything we provide is safe to patients. However, saying that, though, still, you've got to be aware, any patient using a peptide, they're technically classified for research purposes.
So the risk is in your hands.
So the risk is in your hands, and I wouldn't use it for long-term things. So if you want to do, say, something like a BPC 157 for, say, like 2 months to have an injury, fine. Same thing, there's something called CJC 1295, right, which is the growth hormone thing. Part of a repair phase as well, no more than 8 weeks.
But there's alternatives to peptides that are
100%.
Approved, FDA approved.
Eventually, I think peptides will become more mainstream because big pharmaceutical companies will start getting involved.
Yes.
But unfortunately, right now, the regulations behind it are not there. So once again, patients shop around and you get peptides and you get peptides.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well,
and once again, if you're doing it with a doctor, medical guidance, and there's proper monitoring, perfect. But there's places now you can go online and you can literally click, I want this, and that. And you've never spoken to anyone and you can literally choose what you want. No one's checked your medical history. That's a little bit shady. So,
no, absolutely. Yeah. And you also don't know what the long-term
100%.
Implications are yet.
100%.
We'll get there.
Yeah, eventually. The evidence, the science will come eventually. It's coming.
Absolutely.
But it's going to take some time.
And in terms of health supplements, so I know you didn't really go into that. If a person like myself is not adverse to trying different things and putting budget behind whatever I need to improve my overall longevity and health, what is your take on that?
So, I mean, supplements, there's so many different things that you can use. But once again, you've got to make sure that if you are taking a supplement, is it going to benefit you? Right?
Gut health, so probiotics should be a standard.
So probiotics, fine, but probiotics and then prebiotics.
Yes.
Right? That's a new big thing as well. So something as simple as a good quality yogurt or like sauerkraut, for instance, right? It's a prebiotic. Amazing. Right.
I get that, but in the same sense, you know, it's not really measurable how much. I mean, it's like 100%. Saying you got to eat carrots instead of using 100%. Retinol on your skin. You know, you're going to be sitting there with your 10 carrots a day.
There's a big debate between prebiotics and probiotics.
Yeah.
So, I mean, probiotics, I personally don't use probiotics, all right, because I'm quite confident I got my diet dialed in, so I know my gut health is pretty good.
But for the average Joe who's not.
But there's not. But that's then rather use the probiotic then.
Yeah.
But once again, you pay for what you get.
Yes.
So probiotics, you've got to make sure it's a good quality probiotic. If it isn't in a fridge at the pharmacy, don't buy it. The probiotics that's just sitting on the shelf, that's immediately a red flag.
Well, some new probiotics, because I don't want to mention brands, but there's new probiotics for top brands in South Africa that have reformulated to not be dependent on sitting in a fridge.
You see, I'm still skeptical about that.
Are you skeptical because you don't know enough about that specific one?
Don't know enough about it, but if you go once again, look at the science behind it and so on and so forth and what's been explained in terms of, you know, what works and what doesn't work, because once again, it's so difficult to quantify. Has a probiotic worked for you, yes or no, right? It's purely based on patient experience, right?
Yeah, my own personal experience, I've seen a huge improvement using a daily probiotic as opposed to not.
100%.
And that was purely because I mean, I'm around 3 little kids all day long who are sick permanently.
Yes.
And I've noticed an improvement in my skin. I've noticed an improvement in my immune system.
100%.
I've been struggling with bloating. And I know this is also hormone and other impacts that have, or other aspects that have an impact on it. But changing that has helped. So I think my standard is like, I take the vitamin DK, E and A, and I take a probiotic, and that's kind of my go-to.
Yeah, perfect.
My omegas as well.
Those omegas also very, very important. There's been lots of studies, especially fish oil, but the right omegas, so like DHA, right? With the omegas, very, very important, especially for cardiovascular health. Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on the Metagenics one.
Same here.
I'm not saying it because this is not a paid partnership. No,
but they're good quality.
They really are good.
They're more expensive, but they're good quality products.
Absolutely.
So
and you know what you're getting
100%.
At the end of the day. That's what you're saying. You pay for what you get.
100%.
Well, this has been a very insightful conversation. I've learned a hell of a lot.
I hope so.
Just in this less than an hour.
Okay.
And you're definitely going to get my application form soon, because I would love to run some tests and see what I can improve. You know, I'm 36 years old now, and I'm at a stage where I want to live longer and healthier and be able to throw my kids around when I'm 60 years old.
100%.
And well, they won't be able to be thrown around by my grandchildren.
100%.
Versus just milling around every day. My husband as well. We both want to live a far more active life. Actually, talking on that topic on its own, I've noticed there's been a lot of articles around how people are dropping alcohol. They are switching to electrolytes. They want to be more active. They want to be more healthy. You know, alcohol's not really becoming a thing anymore, which is so great.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you look at the evidence and the literature around alcohol now as well, the fact that we're still drinking alcohol, we just shouldn't be, all right? But, you know, saying that, once again, I'll get a lot of stick and flack for this, I'm sure. But it's one of these things where it's become like a social norm still to drink. And I don't drink, right? I stopped drinking years ago. And immediately when I stopped drinking, I saw a lot of people sort of not like almost judging me, but
why? Is there something wrong with you?
Why are you not drinking? And unfortunately, like there's this like social pressure almost to feel that you are part of a, you know, social gathering or a, you know, that like a community by, you know, the guys standing around the bar having a beer.
Yeah.
And there I am having my sparkling water, and everyone's like, "But why?"
Do you have a history?
I mean, I went on it was like a year and a half ago. I went on a boys' camping and fishing trip for a weekend with some guy friends, and the amount of flack I got because Alistair's not drinking. And I said, let's talk in 20 years' time.
I can still be fun.
So there's that, but you know, if you look at the evidence in terms of preservation of cognitive function and even links to potentially cancers and all that, particularly oral cancers, funny enough, with alcohol as well. And what it does to, once again, diet as well. So as soon as you have alcohol, inhibitions go down, craving centers go up. Guess what happens? You eat more nonsense, diet goes out the window. So if you look at all those aspects, if you can cut alcohol out completely, go for it. However, saying that, life is also about living. And if some patients find they need, like, say, 1 or 2 drinks during the week just to, especially like on a Friday night or Saturday night, just to unwind, everything in moderation, 1 or 2, fine. But if you can stop.
Absolutely. There's actually, I saw an article on CNN the other day. It mentioned there's non-alcoholic bars and nightclubs opening up everywhere now. I think it's great.
No, but if you look, unfortunately, in South Africa, we've got a massive issue with alcohol abuse in this country. When I used to work as a doctor in casualty environments, Friday and Saturday nights, especially on payday weekend, you just knew it was going to be
wild,
crazy, and it was all alcohol-related trauma.
Yeah, it's not worth it, guys. Stop drinking. Be safe out there. Switch to electrolytes. 100%. There's so many options now, and they taste amazing. Well. Exactly. Okay, so this conversation really just proves that health isn't a shortcut. It's about a strategy. So there are various strategies that we discussed today. One of them is, if you want to start with the basics, you can go to cosmetology.co.za. We have access to some of the absolute best of the best wellness solutions, from your creatines to your vitamin D and your omegas. However, if you want to go further and you want to understand a bit more about your own biological makeup right now, it's not too late. It doesn't matter your age. It's never too late. If you're starting to feel like you don't feel like yourself and you need some help, Dr. Alistair is here for you. You can contact him. You can reach out to FemLabs or AndroLabs, depending on whether you're male or female. Yes, we do actually differentiate these days. So how can the public reach you? Where's the best place to start?
Best place, is through the platforms. So website for male patients, www.androlab.co.za. It's also on social media as well, on Instagram at androlab.co.za. Or for female patients, FemLab, so FEMLAB.co.za, also at FemLab_ as well. That's on Instagram as well. Or you can just hop onto my Instagram page as well, which is at longevity_by_Dr. Alistair. I know it's a long thing. That's on Instagram as well. And more than welcome to follow me there. Send me a DM. I'll get back to you as soon as I can.
I will save all the details in the comments as well.
Awesome.
So people who don't feel like going back, they can just click and go.
Wonderful. Thank you.
To all the listeners out there, if this episode of The Glow Up touched you in any way, I really hope that it helps. Hit subscribe, share with someone who needs it, and join me on the next episode. Ladies and gentlemen out there, you do not have to suffer. That is the biggest takeaway. You do not have to suffer. We get accustomed to being okay with the negative changes in our body, and you don't need to. Listen to your body, listen to what it needs. There are solutions out there, and we are here to help you. Until next time, stay glowing.